Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often. He'll wipe my tears. Only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my lovers, let you know that front is.
Welcome to the Message of Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today on the show we have a guest who we've been trying to get on the show for a while, and she's finally here. So, welcome, Norma.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Thank you guys for having me here today. It truly is an honor to be here.
Of course.
Thank you.
It's an honor for you to be here, Norma. So we're gonna just get right into it. Tell us what it was like for you growing up. Where did you grow up?
So I'm originally from East LA. I was born in General Hospital, and I grew up on a street called Humphrey Street down there. And I had my family out there, you know, cousins, and we all kind of in those ages that were kind of close, you know. And so I grew up there, was born there, grew up there, and then from there I moved a lot of places. Mom and Dad did a lot of moving around. So from there we moved out to Pico Rivera. I did some of my schooling out there up till 6th grade. And then from there, well, let me back up a little bit. Mom and Dad ended up separating when I was small. I was little. So at that point, Mom and Dad, you know, they were in two separate households. And then I went with Mom. Me and my sister went with Mom. And we ended up moving quite a bit. We moved to Pico. I lived in Pico Rivera. I lived in Santa Fe Springs. I lived in Whittier. So you could say I did a lot of geographical movement till ultimately when the years, and my dad he lived the rest of his life out in El Monte. So I basically grew up in two households that were very, very different.
How were they different?
You had one household was more rules, more strictness, and the other home was like, hey, just be whoever you are, you know. And I realized as I got older, it was because there was more, like Dad wasn't home as much because of work when I would go to my dad's house, and Mom was under the rule of another man.
Oh, wow.
So which was which?
So, yeah.
Which was more strict and which was...
Oh, Mom's house was more strict
Really?
because
Okay.
it was ruled by somebody else.
Okay.
And Dad was very much more lenient because he was always working. But stepmom, I mean, she was always home. She didn't have to work. So basically, that was the difference.
Okay.
And I remember growing up with that. You know, it was doing the visits to Dad. He would come pick us up and all that stuff. You know, it was just like living in two different worlds.
Yeah.
Two different worlds. And you know, when you're a kid, and you're kind of faced with that, I know for me, what I realized was that I really didn't know where I belonged. You know, growing up in two different worlds and trying to be this over here when I'm at Mom's and then trying to be this over here when I'm at Dad's was very, very confusing for a young kid. You know, I don't have to behave as much over here, but I have to behave more over here. And it was just very chaotic in my head.
Yeah.
You know.
How many siblings did you have?
I have one blood sister.
One blood sister?
Yeah, one blood sister from Mom and Dad.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you
she's
guys-
she's I think 2 years older than I am.
So did you guys both were doing this?
Yes,
back
we
and
were
forth?
both doing back and forth. But what I will say is we had different experiences with that.
Yeah.
I should say. And that's okay. I realize that today. Like, that's okay. My sister had a whole nother experience. We were in the same homes, but we both had different experiences growing up.
You both digested it differently.
Yes, exactly. And it doesn't make it right or wrong for each of us. It just makes it what it is for each of us.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, me and my sister, we've had this conversation.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, and she said that, like, the problem with me is that I never accepted that we were poor. I never accepted the life. Like, my sister was able to accept, she still became an addict, right? But she was able to accept it a lot. Well, I mean, I never accepted it. I always felt like, fuck this bullshit. Like, I hate living here. Like, I hate that. Like, I never accepted that we were poor. I always thought there was something better out there, right? And my sister found acceptance in it. So I had a harder time growing up, and I grew up with, like, the poor Adam syndrome. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
You know, poor guy, poor Adam, poor this, poor, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, our mentalities were just different. And I think that's a big factor, because people who grow up in the same neighborhood, same parents, same all that stuff, but it's the way a person digests, or a kid digests things, which kind of determines how they turn out.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%, because that's my experience. It was kind of reverse, where I knew the reality of the life, but my sister has a whole different perspective of it. And so I used to get upset with that, like, no, this is the reality of stuff. And then I got to a place in my life as I became an adult, you know, and found recovery and did some work, which is like, that's her perspective, and that's her truth.
Yeah.
And I just have to accept that, that's her truth, regardless of whether the details are true or not. It doesn't matter. What matters is just what everybody's truth is for them.
Yeah.
And like you said, Adam, how they digest it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
We all have our own realities.
True.
Yeah.
So true. So, you know, growing up with that really was confusing for myself. You know, and I realized that, you know, mom had, after a few years, you know, mom was a single mom, you know, raising us, you know, me and my sister. So I have one blood sibling. And unfortunately, mom lost a couple of sets of twins, you know, and so that was the only blood sister I have. However, when dad remarried, he married a lady that had two children already, and then between them, they had 3. So at a later time, I grew up in a blended family, which was a beautiful thing, you know, because here I am, I have other brothers and sisters now, and that was a good journey for me with that when I would go to dad's. It was a little more difficult being at mom's, you know, and that was because, you know, she, like I said, you know, the gentleman that she had married was, you know, kind of was controlling. He was an alcoholic, you know. Although my father too, he, you know, back when we were little, he liked the alcohol and stuff, you know. But then he found a turning point in his life where he found recovery in a different way.
Right.
You know. So with that, just growing up in that kind of environment of 2 different homes, I really didn't know where my roots were per se. Like you know, you hear people say roots, like, yeah, my roots are in, like, I was born in LA, but that's not really where my roots are. Yeah. For me, what I believe in my life is my roots are where I was planted.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and really being here and there, I just didn't understand that.
Right.
What was it like I'm going to assume you went to school from mom's house?
Yes.
And then dad on the weekends?
Yes,
Okay.
I did that for a while. That was like all through elementary school, stuff like that, and junior high. But then when I became a little too much for mom, then I went and I stayed at dad's, lived at dad's. There was a decision made for me to go live at dad's, and I did some high school over there. So it was during that age of junior high school.
Yeah.
that became the turning point of the, we'll say, disruptive behavior.
Yeah.
You know, and that mom needed like to say, okay, I can't deal with this, so we're gonna send you over here to Dad's house.
If you look at it though, like I'm looking at it from the outside, you never had a stable school, you never had a stable home,
Right.
You can never form like relationships with kids at school, like.
Yeah.
What's to be expected but that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And you hit something right on point, Mike. It's building the relationships with kids of my age. Right when I would start, I remember, right when I would start to do that, when we were settled somewhere, and I start to do that, it was pulled right, the rug was pulled right from underneath me. Yeah. And, you know, as a kid, you're not given those details of why you have to move again, why, you know, all of that. And then I remember putting up that wall, like, okay, I don't need friends now, because when I get friends, I get hurt.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
You know, and so I remember when we lived in, I didn't mention, I did grow up, I did have some time in City of Commerce also. And I remember I had this best friend, her name was Deborah. And her mom and my mom were best friends, you know, and they would do all the sewing and all the cooking. They did so much stuff, and me and Debbie would just play and everything like that. And I remember when it was time to leave that place, like I was just heartbroken, just so heartbroken. And I told myself, I'm never going to make a friendship like that ever again, because it just hurt. You know, and so kind of just putting up that wall already for that. And I tell this because it's part of my truth, you know, how people sometimes ask, like, when did you become an addict?
Right. Yeah.
You know, when did you become an addict? What was that like for you? Well, you know, being in recovery and doing the work, I remember I would always say, oh, well, it was when I was in junior high school, you know, and when I started using, you know, to no one's surprise, I'm like an older generation, and it wasn't the weed and it wasn't the alcohol, it was actually spray paint. You know, that was my first drug of choice, the spray paint. And I tell this when I share, it's like, and I don't know why, it's the silliest thing, but I think about it now, and it's my truth. Like, it had to be gold spray paint and a white sock. And don't ask me why. I guess I just thought I was bougie back then or something. I could afford, you know, gold spray paint. But that was I would always say that was my first drug of choice. But as I continued to do some work in recovery, I realized that wasn't my first drug of choice. My first drug of choice is when I was that young kid, and I had put up that wall about having friends, that I used to go around the neighborhood. You guys are probably too young to remember this, but when you would go to carnivals or fairs, they'd give you a balloon, and it would be on this big green stick, okay? And I remember that my mom's husband at the time used to use that stick for disciplinary purposes. And so I remember I used to grab that stick when I would go out to play when he was at work, and I'd grab that stick and I'd go knocking on the kids' doors, you know, and say, hey, can they come out and play? And then, you know, I'd gather a couple of them, and I would use that stick, not just to kind of like, if you don't play like I want you to play, and you don't do the game like I want you to do the game, I have the stick right here. So like being that threatening bully, really.
Control,
yeah. Control. First drug of choice, right?
Yeah.
Anything that makes you feel superior, anything that makes you feel different outside of yourself and your real feelings. Yeah, that control. And I remember that. And I was like, it was like one of those, I call them the spiritual awakenings that I've had in recovery, where, oh my gosh, it wasn't even about the drugs back then. It was about the feeling back then, you know? So, yeah, so now, you know, and of course, as I know for myself is when I do the work, and more will be revealed, right? Always. It does. I notice in my journey, no matter how long I stay, more is always revealed. And when that revelation came about, I was like, oh my gosh, those poor kids, you know? because I never defined myself as a bully or anything like that. But yeah,
And you know what's funny is, so your husband,
Yes.
right? So I grew up with her husband's son, Rudy.
Yes. Yes.
Little Rudy, right? And so Rudy had a stepbrother. I don't remember, Green Eyes, Junebug.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Okay,
Yes.
so I don't know his real name, but that was his street name, right? And so you brought up a memory right now. I remember we used to play, because he was older than us. But he was like a grown man, basically. And we were like 12, 13 years old, right? And we used to play fucking like military, bro. So they would have us sit on chairs, bro, and we had to like, you know what I'm saying? But look, check this out. Look, if we moved or we got funny, they would kick us in the chest, bro. Like knock us out the chair, bro. Like they would beat the shit out of us. But yeah, I just
That's
remember
not military. That's like a prisoner
I
of
don't know
war.
what it
dude.
was, but I knew they just wanted an excuse to fuck us up. But I believe, right, that I was an addict way before I ever picked up my first drug, way before I ever had any bad habit. It was that whole point of view,
Right.
The self-pity character defect that was always there for me, you know?
Yes.
And so, yeah. But yeah, when you were talking about that, I was like, oh, that's kind of fucked up. And I was like, whatever. They used to do that shit to me, bro. You know? yeah. Jumo used to fuck us up. Yeah. Me and little Rudy.
Yeah. That, and as a kid, you don't think of it like that. You don't even know. You just think like you're really trying in some way or form to make friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I wasn't. I was just trying to be better than, more powerful, more controlling, so yeah, that's how it was. And my sister and myself, we're two different people. We're same household, like we talked about, same household, same, schools, all of that. And we're just two different people that live two different lives. Live two different lives. So, growing up like that in between homes and everything like that was a little, like I said, kind of confusion. Now I'll talk a little bit about my dad's home. Going to my dad's home was comforting for me, because I didn't get to have my dad all the time, But when we were there, I mean, he made it as fun as he could for us. Every year, Dad made sure that we packed up the station wagon, because he had one of those old station wagons with boxes of food and all the camping gear and everything. And he took us to all the national parks.
Wow.
So every year we went to one national park, Yosemite, Sequoia, all the national parks. And those were the most beautiful times that I had when I was at Dad's house, and the fun that, and I think it was more because I had those other brothers and sisters. So like there was 7 of us. By the end of all the kids being born, there ended up being 7 of us. And even as we got older, and we would stay there, there was bunk beds, kids were sleeping in the living room, they made it work. And they had a small 2-bedroom little home, but it's what it was in the home. And not to say that I didn't feel that at my mom's house, because I felt the love and the care from my mom. Like, she was a stay-at-home mom. I mean, she worked for a lot of years, and then she ended up, staying at home. She'd bake and cook for it, all of that. She did the best she could to take care of us, and I always appreciate that, So with Dad, it was just more because there was more of that. Bless you. There was more of that interaction with other brothers and sisters, and for me growing up, like I said, the lady that my dad married, she had 2 children already, and then between them they had 3. But the beauty of it, what I realized getting older is it was never a point where, oh, that's my half sister, that's my stepsister, and that's my blood sister. It was never about that. And I realized why, because they treated us all equally on an equal playing field. We were their children. When we would go somewhere, I'd call Mom D, she would not say oh, these are Louie's kids. These are no, these are our kids.
Right.
These are our children. And the beauty of that today in my life is I have a blended family. I married into a blended family. My husband had 2 children, or 3, and I have 3. And I realized that being able to experience that as a child gave me the tools back then how to do this today with the blended family that I live in.
Right.
And it's the most beautiful thing. And I always sit sometimes and I say, thanks, Pops. Thanks, Mom D, for showing me, giving me the tools how it is to raise a blended family. You know, and I don't know, that just touches my heart so much because I didn't realize it as a kid back then. Like, hey, you know, your journey's going to go like this and you're already going to be prepared for it.
Right.
You know, because I always say I love his children just like they were mine. And he cares for mine like they were his, you know, and I just love that. I love that. So I'll fast forward to, you guys asked me about like school and that. So that's kind of how like the elementary, I went to a lot of elementary schools, stuff like that. Junior high is where I started suffering some stuff. You know, trying to find out who I am as, you know, 14, 15-year-old, you know, girl trying to figure out who she is and all this stuff, you know, and trying to run with certain crowds and stay away from certain crowds and all of that stuff. It was very draining, I would say. But just trying to find out who I am and where I belong. Yeah. And I couldn't find that for a long, long time. I couldn't find that for a long time, you know, and I would, not that I wouldn't try, but I always ended up in the wrong situations. Yeah. You know what I mean? And junior high was my first experience with the paint. You know, yeah, sure. Yo, you guys are gonna go out to the field, do what? Okay, yeah, sure, I'll try that. Oh, it was on and cracking. Yeah. You know, and then everything just spiraled from there during the school years. You know, doing that, ditching school, you know, the grades, all of that. Because I mean, of course, in elementary school and all that, I was, you know, the star student, getting all these awards and everything and all of that. But at the same time, it was like, because I had to do that in the home that I was in with Mom and her husband, you know, and with Dad, it was like, you know, still do good, do good grades, you know, and all that. But it wasn't as much disciplinary action as it was over here, you know. And so I went through that, like through junior high, trying to figure out who I was, and then high school came, you know, and then I found the people. You know what I mean? Yeah. I found the people. And, and so, you know, just that little bit of bulliness came out a little bit more, you know, and hung out with them and tried a few other different ways. Maybe I should go this route with the sports. No, that didn't work, because if they did it better than me, you know, that's some bullshit. Because I needed to be the best. Yeah. You know, whatever that looked like. And so, you know, try to do that, try to do some cheerleading stuff and all of that. And all of that just went to the wayside, man, because if somebody was better, it was like, no, you can't be better than me, because don't you know who I am, right? Yeah. I had such an, I don't even know the word, like an unrealistic persona of myself. Yeah. Which was so false, you know? And so through high school, you know, I did that, ran with them, tried to run with them, no, you know, and then I found him. God, he was going to save me. We were going to be happy forever. Oh my gosh, yes, you know. And yeah, you know, and so him and I, you know, created this little, you know, relationship thing. You know, little did I know there was some other relationships going on his part that came later, you know, that I found out about. But then I became a teen mom. You know, I ended up becoming a teen mom.
Had drugs become a problem yet?
No,
No.
no, they hadn't. There was some drinking going on when we'd go to parties and all of that. That whole full-blown addiction happened after I became a single mom. So I met him. We had our relationship in that. Ended up being a young teen mom with the first one, my son. I was 17 when I had my son. Then, we ended up moving in together and everything. Had our family. We had 2 more children after that. It was not a healthy relationship, I should say. It was not a very healthy relationship. We were both very young, He grew up kind of in the same lifestyle as me, you know what I mean? And so, we kind of lived like that. But then the finality of it came after we had our third child. And something just hit. I couldn't anymore. I didn't have it anymore. I was tired. I couldn't. And unfortunately, things went down a certain way. We just ended up splitting up for good. And my kids were young. My daughter, my youngest daughter, she was probably, I want to say she might have been like 3, something like that. And so we split up, and I became a single mom with 3 kids. I didn't have to work when I had my children. Like, he was a good provider. I do say that. He was a good provider, worked hard and all of that, but we all have our assets and our defects, right? And so I found myself at that point, a single mom with 3 kids, and what was I going to do now?
Right.
What was I going to do now?
And you're like mid-20s, early to mid-20s at that point?
Yes, early 20s, yes. And so, I went on public assistance for a while, did that, and then, met the people again.
Right.
Met the people again.
And what city were you living in at this time?
That time I was in Whittier because he was from Whittier, and so I moved over there when when we started. Well, when I found out I was pregnant, then it was like I was living with my mom in Santa Fe Springs. I actually was able to finish school. I was able to finish high school. Despite all the disruptive behavior and everything, I was able to. And back then, gosh, this was in the 70s, they had developed a teen mothers program. And I was the second teen mom to finish that program. So that was a good part,
Yeah.
So after that, then I moved over there to Whittier where he lived at. And we stood with his parents for a while and stuff until we got a little apartment upstairs from her and stuff like that. So we developed our own home and stuff like that. But after all of that ended, again, I was saying, found myself single mom, 3 kids. What am I going to do here? Went on public assistance and just let that roll for a few years and stuff. But in the meantime, hanging out with people that are not so healthy for me, doing things that are not so healthy for me or my children, and then I'm in full-blown addiction status. Full-blown.
What are you using at this time?
At that time, I was using methamphetamine.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that's back then when it was speed.
Yeah. Yeah. I was using that, but if you pass me, marijuana, I was using that. If, you passed me a 40, I was using that,
Yeah.
So, basically whatever I could get my hands on. And then at that time, I ended up being able to stay in the same home that him and I had. So I was there for a while in that same home, and that became the home that people did things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And after that finished, my son ended up going to live with his father. because he started working with his dad, you know, at this time. My kids, they were going to school. They were doing all of that. Today, I know that like there was something greater than me that was managing that. But all the time I thought I was managing that, you know. But my kids were going to school, you know, stuff like that. I was having a few little issues with my daughter, you know, because I started seeing her going kind of down the journey that I was going through. But with the help of one of my siblings, you know, she managed to get back on track and stuff. My son had managed to graduate. He ended up going with his dad, you know, because he had a job for him, so he started working with him. So at that point, it was just my younger daughter. And she's the one that I took with me through my addiction. You know, and today I can say that, like, she's the most beautiful, caring, amazing woman. And she's a great mom, wonderful daughter. And I know that it's only by the grace of a higher power that I get to have that relationship with her, you know. So at this point, like I said, from Whittier, my mom had moved up here with her now third husband, because the man that she was married when I was growing up with, they ended up separating, divorcing, and everything because of her own situations that occurred. And now she's with her other husband. So, you know, what I realized is that my mom did the best that she could too. And I realized is that I understand now as an older woman in that why she was always caring for me about that. Like, she didn't want me to go through that same thing. But, you know, it occurred. You know, this husband that I'm on, my final and last, is my third marriage, you know, and that's okay, you know. And my mom and I, you know, unfortunately, she's no longer here with us, but her and I would kind of joke about that. Like, Mom, you didn't want me, but I did 3, and I got the best. And she's all, I see that, Mija, you know. And but, you know, we kind of had a little inside joke about that. And God, I lost track of where I was. Where was I?
So you were using, and you had your last daughter with you.
Yes, I had my last daughter. And by then I had moved up here.
To San Bernardino,
Yes,
California?
to San Bernardino, because my mom was up here. So I moved in with her for a little bit. And
I never left.
and then I never left, because I said, you know, my dad's still in El Monte and everything, but Mom had moved up here. And so when things fell apart for me down there, I was like, okay, let me come up here thinking, okay, I'm going to go to this place I never heard of, never been to, all of that stuff. Yeah, little did I know what was out here, right? So I came up here, brought my younger daughter with me, and my 2 older children were with their dad. And I went full force up here when I got up here. I was trying to run from something to something that I thought was going to be better.
Yeah.
But I've learned that wherever I run, there I am.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not till I fix myself that I'm going to find what I'm looking for, right? So I come up here with my younger daughter, and I'm just full-blown addiction. Full-blown addiction, you know. Whatever it looks like, whatever I can do with whoever I can do it with, and everything. There's so much in those years. But I want to jump into what that looks like.
Yeah.
And then how I managed to get into recovery.
So real quick, I want to ask you one question.
Sure.
Did you find it easier to go use like you wanted to after you moved out here? Were you able to like leave your daughter with your mom? And
No.
No.
Back
It wasn't like that?
I didn't leave my daughter with my mom for those purposes. But I would find some babysitters, you know, like that. So, yeah. And was it easier to use up here than it? Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
It really, really was. Because everywhere you turn, that's why I said, little did I know what was up here.
Yeah.
More, you know, I mean, now it's just anywhere you go.
Yeah.
But down there, it was a little bit different for me down there.
Yeah.
And maybe I just wasn't looking in the right places in that. But when I got up here, it was a whole different thing because it was right next door. It was right down the street. Like you just asked and people could just tell you.
San Bernardino's it's a cesspool of people.
Yeah.
Right.
It really is. Like, it draws people in. Like, people...
It doesn't even matter if you go to a nice neighborhood in San Bernardino.
No.
It's there.
Because right down
It's
the
everywhere.
street's a bad neighborhood.
No, it's in the nice
Yeah,
neighborhood.
that too.
Right?
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always
everywhere.
thought that I couldn't get clean in San Bernardino. So I would always try to leave San Bernardino. And I remember going to Upland or like all these other places to sober living and try to get clean out there. But every single time I took a bus out to San Bernardino, I was fucking loaded. No matter how convinced I was
You
that I
could just
wasn't
go to
gonna...
Memorial Park.
Well, I didn't know that. San Bernardino's where my roots are. That's where I grew up. It was born and raised. So I know everybody and where all the spots were, you know?
Yeah.
And but this time when I got clean, I was in San Bernardino, so it worked out perfectly. I was able to build tolerance towards San Bernardino and not get fucking loaded.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And you know, I lived with Mom for a little while. And then I managed to get a house. Like she lived in, it was in Rialto. And I managed to get a house right behind her apartments. So I had my own house with him. That's my truth. It always had to be with him because I wasn't at that place yet where I was okay with me, right? So my older daughter ended up coming back with me for a while to finish high school. So she did that. So, and then she was on her way, right? But my younger daughter, she was the one that was with me constantly. So I'm living in my house there with him. He's there, and we're living the lifestyle. We're living the lifestyle, everything, doing all of that, and then you know, we start doing things out of the home. You know, I mean, I'm just going to be truthful. You know, we start selling. It starts becoming the home, the garage that you could be there. You know, all of that stuff. You know, and that's just full blown.
Yeah.
That's just full blown. And so what ends up happening is that relationship ends up the way it ends up, no good, you know, all of that stuff. And I'm just moving, just doing again what happened when I was a kid, moving from here to there and everywhere, just trying to figure it out, you know. You know, people that I had met had helped me, you know, let me, you know, kind of stay at their homes for a bit and all that, but that's not what I wanted. So what ended up happening was as my daughter got older, you know, and she was going to school she was 15, and she met a young man, and he wanted to take care of my daughter. He asked if, you know, can she just come and be here with me and stuff? And I said yes. And I will say, like, he took care of my daughter. He was a hard worker, took care of her. They had two young, you know, she became a young mom also. And, you know, they had two beautiful children. She ended up graduating. I kind of saw the same pattern. You know what I'm saying? Like the chains are not broken until the chains are broken.
Right.
You know, the generational chains are broken, like really broken.
Right.
So I saw that, and but I'm still in my full blown addiction, you know, and whatever, you know, what happened is now I'm living on the street with another gentleman. You know, here I go again, you know, but it's what I knew. Everything inside of me didn't want it to be like that. Everything inside of me was screaming, I want to stop. I want to stop. I'm tired. I don't want no more. But I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I didn't have the tools to know how to stop. You know? But yet inside I'm dying. I'm just dying. And so I'm living, you know, partying it up, whatever. Went to a nightclub, met this dude. You know, next thing I know, we're in a relationship. And then I'm living at his house and thinking I'm living in a castle because he built us a little room on the patio of his mom's house, you know, with the blankets, has windows and all this other stuff. I'm living large, you know. But it's just, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. That's how we live when we're in our full-blown addiction, right? I mean, that's how I chose to live. And that's in Pomona at this time, you know. And then I end up going motel to motel and everything and all of that. And he's using heroin and I'm using methamphetamine, you know. But then I was tired. And I was like, you know, I don't want this to happen anymore. So what ended up happening was at one point, you know, we were out here in this area. And we were at some, you know, the Connect's house, and the raid happened. And that's how I caught my case. That was a true blessing in disguise that I never saw coming. Mm-hmm. Never saw coming, you know. And went through the whole thing and everything. I'm still with the dude, okay? I'm still with the dude. Caught the whole case and everything. They came for who they wanted and they came for what they wanted. But, you know, whoever was there still had to get cited, whatever, you know. Mine was some minor stuff, but I still had to go to court for it and everything. So during that process, we're still there. We're staying in that spot still, okay? Still using, mind you. Because, you know, just because they came and you got to go to court now, didn't mean I had to stop using, right? Of course, you know. So anyways, time goes by. We're staying there for a bit. And then they ask us to leave. So we're like, okay. So then we're going motel to motel. And in the meantime, it was court time, you know. And so I ended up going. And they ended up telling me, like, okay, you know, this is what we can do. You can either go to jail, do your time, or you can do recovery.
Treatment?
Not in-house treatment, outpatient.
Oh, okay.
Outpatient. Me thinking that I'm all that in a bag of chips, because remember, I grew up with that thought, right? Was like, hold on, let me talk to my attorney, who was a public defender, of course. Yeah. Wasn't even somebody I was paying, right? And I remember that, like, consulting with my attorney, and my attorney looks at me like, are you really asking me this question? He's telling you can do an outpatient program for 18 months or you go to jail. I think, Norma, the best option would probably be the 18-month program. Mm-hmm. You know, even, and I share that because even in the midst of what makes sense, the thought process is still in the active addiction part. Because my thought at that time was, if I go to this outpatient program, I'm not going to be able to get high. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. But if I go to jail...
Can't get high either.
Well, you know,
yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
But that would have been the reality too. But my mind just wasn't processing that at that time. So I take the latter. I do an 18-month outpatient program, you know, and I, you know, have to go to do certain criteria and stuff like that, you know, and I'm introduced to a recovery program, and still with the dude. Okay, still with the dude.
Did he take the program too?
No. No. He's still out doing his thing.
Oh.
Okay? But I'm still with the dude because I haven't worked on me.
Right.
Right? So I'm still sitting in a place of low self-esteem,
Yeah.
low self-worth, not thinking that I have any value, not understanding that you have choices you can make today to have a different kind of life, scared, what does a different kind of life look like? I'm used to what I know. It's comfortable for me. And this is how I'm supposed to live. So I have all of that. So why would I not continue to live like that? So I'm just caught up in all of that. And so I start doing all the criteria that they want me to do, you know, start doing the outpatient program and everything, but I'm still living in the hotel with the dude. Mind you, mom's in her home, you know, all of that, knowing that mom's door is open. Mom's door is open, right? But not choosing to walk through it, right? And today, I think there was a couple of factors in there. There was a couple of factors, like didn't want to bother her with it, like she has her own life, you know, all of that stuff. That's not a regret I have. I just know that it helped me to build on something different. It helped me to build on something different. So with that, I start doing all of that, the recovery part of it. But then at some point, what happens is we're living in the motel room. I start hearing a message of hope through the recovery process.
Right.
I start hearing that. And something just happens. I can't, you know, what I could say is something happens inside where I start thinking and I start saying, wow, maybe something can change. Maybe something can happen. Maybe something can be different, you know? But not really ready to make the change, you know? So I'm doing all of that and still over here with him. But there's that part of me that's like, man, I need to at least try to step out and try. Well, what ended up happening there was at this time, I'm not using anymore. I haven't put anything. I haven't had a drink. I haven't picked up because remember, I'm going through this recovery process and I'm learning. I'm being teachable. I'm learning things. And I'm drug testing and all of that stuff. So, you know, we know what that happens. You do it dirty, you're right back over there in front of the judge. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I want to do that today. So I'm learning all of that stuff and going through this process and meeting some people, right?
Yeah.
Who are sharing the message of hope with me. And so what ends up happening is I go back to that motel room and he's there and I ended up getting beat one more time for the last time. In doing the recovery process, that was at where I'm kind of going fast forward for time's sake. I'm actually at 2 years in the recovery process. Okay? I'm actually at 2 years when that happens. So you can see what happens if, for me, I was still on the fence on things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not using, okay, but I'm not choosing to get out of the whole complete lifestyle.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I still need something that's chaotic, something that's complicated, and something that's comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And outside of because I learned that drugs weren't really the problem, right? It was all the other stuff that I carried with me that was. And nobody could fix that or change that but me.
Right.
So until I became really aware of that, still choosing to live in the lifestyle, but you're not using, there's still a problem. Because it's not the drugs. It's the thinking. It's how you feel about yourself. It's about not wanting to get out of what you know. Of that. So when I got beat up for the last time, I called Mom. She picked me up. I went to her home, and I'll never, ever forget this. She helped disrobe me. And she saw all the bruises that I had up and down on my left side. And I was watching her in the mirror. And I just saw her cry so hard. She just cried so hard, and she just hugged me, and she loved on me. She told me, Mija, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And at that moment, I believed it 100%. I wanted it more than anything then. At that moment, I wanted it more than anything. And so after that day, I ended up staying in Mom's house, never went back with the dude. His mom called me a couple of months later and said that he had been picked up. He had caught a case for attempted murder. And you know what I thought to myself when I got that phone call? Yeah. All I could think was, thank you, something greater than me, that you took me out of there. Because I might have been the person he was trying to murder. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So I never went back to that. And my journey to recovery really started there. Really started there. I went full-blown into my recovery, just like I had went full-blown into my addiction. Right. I looked everywhere I could, resources, people, you know, what do I need to do here? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do here? And that's when I got into my full recovery. And next Sunday, I know my God is always willing. Yeah. If I keep doing what I've been doing, you know, next Sunday, I will get to celebrate 24 years. Oh, yeah. And I never saw that coming. Never saw that coming. Has it been an easy ride? No, it hasn't. It has been one hell of a fucking journey. Mm-hmm. It's been one hell of a fucking journey. It has been hard. It has been happy. It has been sad. It has been like, I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen here. I'm scared. I'm heartbroken. It has been so much of all of that in 23 years and some months. But the one thing that I have managed to do every day is not pick up no matter what. And not go back to those domestic violence relationships no matter what. And not have to hurt myself no matter what, and not have to hurt another human being no matter what. You know? Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful for that. You know, this year has been the hardest year of my journey. The hardest. Is that lady that disrobed me and loved me and gave me that defining moment. She's my angel now. And I miss her every single day. Every single day. But I know she still cheers me on the other side. You know? And my children. I have an amazing relationship with my children. You know? And they don't have to. They don't have to have that relationship with me. I get to have that with them. I made my amends to all of them, you know. My blended family of brothers and sisters, I made my amends to them. Because, you know, when you're in full-blown addiction, you don't show up, you don't suit up, you don't show up for family things, nothing. And there's always excuses and everything, you know. And I remember we were at a family event, and I asked them all to get in a circle. And I stood in the middle. And I made my amends to them. I told them, I'm sorry for never being the sister that you guys deserved and never participating in family things that I should have been, and I missed so much. And, you know, they all hugged me and loved on me and said, we love you, sister, no matter what. You know? And, you know, it's, life is good today, no matter what happens. You know, I told you I've been through 3 marriages. The first one was to the kids' dad. And then the second one was to a gentleman that I met on my journey. And, you know, he wasn't what he said he was. He happened to be an addict that I wasn't aware of until later on. And he died of an overdose in our home. And, you know, and then here comes my husband, minding my business, and there he is. And it's the best thing that's happened. You know, we don't have a perfect relationship. We don't. You know, he's also on the recovery journey. We just celebrated 13 years married. We've been together 17. Nice. You know, he told me he could give me 11. I said, oh, great, you broke your record. I love it. You know, and it's not perfect, but it's perfect for us. Awesome. It's perfect for us. You know, I've managed to, you know, be an employee with the same company going on 19 years, you know, and because way back here, you know, getting loaded in the bathroom of the job, coming out, somebody saying, God, it smells like some kind of chemicals or something like that. And I remember one time being at the job, just coming out of the bathroom, and this lady is sitting at I was an answering
receptionist.
But for an answering service, you know, taking the messages and stuff for different companies. And I remember seeing one of the girls there. She was polishing her nails and all that. And when the boss said that, like, God, it smells like. And I just come out of the bathroom, not realizing that I was just reeking of the chemicals, right? Yeah. And I told her, yeah, she's over there polishing her nails. That's what smells. And she's like, oh, okay. Like, you know, all like that kind of stuff. Quick thinking. Like, because, you know, you can't see, you know. And, you know, today I you know, I don't do that stuff. And it's just like life has just changed so much. And that's because I've been able to do the work. Oh, yeah. Been able to do the work. And I've been able to release what was holding me hostage. What was holding me hostage inside of myself. The thoughts, the devaluations, all of that stuff. I know who I am. I know my value. I know my worth. And I know the human being that I am today. And the most important thing for me is my purpose. Yeah. Every day that I wake up, I know that I can define my purpose. And that's just to help another human being that might be struggling just like I was. Just like I was. Mm-hmm. I may not be walking in your shoes, but if you share with me something that I can relate to, I have an assignment right then and there. Yeah. I have an assignment. And I am grateful for every assignment that I have had. That I have been able to say, I understand. Let me share with you what happened to me. You know, and how I managed to work through it. And they might choose to do it differently, but as long as I have given some kind of hope back. Yeah. And said, like, you don't have to live like that. Even if you want to, because that's what right? Yeah. Even if I wanted to, because I didn't know how. But, man, just hearing those messages of hope. Oh, yeah, it made such a difference. Such a difference that I didn't know was going to happen the years later.
I think that's
exactly why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we named it the Messages Hope, because that's where it all started for everybody in this room right now. It was just that little glimpse of hope. You know, like I shared on an H&I panel yesterday, and like it was more. How do I say this? It wasn't like people that come from where I come from.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't like dudes from San Bernardino or dudes from the hood, like any of that, right? And I told them, like we might not have like the same physical experience, but we've had the same spiritual experience.
Right.
Right? Like if you ever used against your own will, if you ever woke up one day and said, you know what, like I'm not picking up today, no matter what, and you still picked up, you used against your will, right? If you made a decision that night before that you're gonna finish your bottle and say, you know what, like I'm not drinking tomorrow, and then next morning that disease tells you better go get a fucking bottle from the fucking liquor store, right? And you go get a bottle, like you're losing against your own will, right? If you ever felt hopeless, empty, right?
Yes.
In a room full of people feeling all alone, in a room full of people that love you and feeling unloved, if you ever fucking thought about like taking yourself out, if you, any of those feelings, like you could miss the rest of my message. I just want you to know, like, that's where I've been.
That's where I've been.
Right.
Yes.
And that is a primary purpose of this podcast, is to give people hope that maybe never heard of 12 steps, maybe never heard of recovery, maybe never knew that someone like Mike could get clean, maybe someone like Norma could get clean, or any of our other guests that we've had. If we could just give people just a little bit of hope, right?
Yes.
Just a little bit of hope, and then maybe they're like, you know what, like if these people could do it, maybe we can.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what it was for me when I got clean. I mean, you're one of my predecessors.
Yes.
You're you know what I'm saying? I've gotten enough clean time where there's not like a lot of people that remember me when I got clean, but like you guys were my shining star. And I thought you guys were not full of shit, but I thought to myself, like, this is
I thought they were full of shit. Before,
what I thought
when I came in, yeah.
What I thought was like, you guys didn't use like me.
Yeah.
Right, you guys weren't as fucked up as me. You guys weren't as scandalous as me. You guys weren't as dirty as me. You guys haven't done all the fucked up things that I've done. And then, like, curiosity saved this cat, right? Because I started asking people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff Sutra was one of the first people, right? Because he always had the jewelry, the nice cars, you know what I'm saying? He was always smelled good. And I was like, there's no way this fool used like me. There's no way he put drugs over his family the way I did. And then I talked to him and I'm like, fuck, this fool's fucked up more than me. So like, if you could do it, I'm serious, bro. Yeah. Like, it's a fucked up fucking way to look at shit, but that's how I like. If this person who's fucked off way more than me can fucking get clean, then why the fuck can't I?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I would see that too, and I think that part of me was there too when I first found the recovery process. Yeah, no, you're a liar, and all that, but because I didn't believe that I could do it at that point. Yeah. Until I made that decision, and somebody who told me years ago, when you were talking, Adam, I thought about this. Somebody told me years ago when I first came into the recovery process, just believe that I believe. Mm-hmm. And those small words were like, and I share that with people today too. Like, if you're having a hard time, just believe that I believe. And that worked for me for a while. Okay, I'm believe. You believe. Okay, I'm believe. And I realized that part of me was because when I was a follower growing up, oh, you guys are going to steal that? Okay, I'm down with that. You guys are going to hurt that person? Okay, I'll jump in helping you guys. Like that kind of stuff. I remember that was still in there a little bit. So I knew how to do that, how to believe because you believe. But then it changed where I believed because I believed.
Yeah.
Right? So that was another defining moment also.
And we all need to learn how to be followers in early recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be following somebody's lead.
Yeah. Trying to do this AWOL. It didn't work out.
Right. Yeah, that's what's happened for me. And I'm so grateful for this journey. I'm so grateful for this life. It's amazing.
It is.
It's amazing. Yeah. And just life on life's terms, whatever that could be. And life's terms can really suck sometimes. And I wouldn't be telling the truth if I sat here and said, yeah, I never ever in these 23 years ever wanted to pick up. Yes, I have. I've wanted to. There's times I have wanted to. Let that be known.
Yeah.
But I learned to play the tape. What does it look like? What are the consequences?
Or do I want to go back there?
Do I want to go back there? Yeah. Exactly. And when my mom passed this year, it still is still is the hardest thing. But I am so grateful that I have not one thought of using. You know what my thoughts are? God, just help me to learn to walk and live without my mom here, and help me to get to a peaceful place through the grief.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Simple. That's it. You know?
For me, I felt like my mom deserved for me to hurt. I felt like she didn't deserve for me to drown myself in alcohol or anything like that. Like, I felt like the way I pay my respect to anybody, right, is you grieve them. You feel everything, you know, because losing my mom was one of the most hardest things I had to deal with this year. Well, I mean, in my whole 11 years of being clean. And then, like, there were thoughts of, like, being mad at God for, like, not allowing me to be normal, to where, like I remember thinking, like, why can't I just fucking go have a fucking beer without throwing my whole life away? Because I know, right? And you were talking about that too, like playing the tape all the way forward. The fucked up thing about playing the tape all the way forward is that sometimes we still have good ideas, and we think that we can play the tape forward and it's going to end differently than what it always ends up in, you know? And for me, there's no more good ideas for me. I know that if I fucking pick up and get loaded,
That's it.
I'm done. I'm fucking finished. I'm right back to the races. I'm right back to the spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional pull that drugs, you know, and any substance has on me, you know. But yeah, so I was angry at my mom, but I like I said, I seen other people grieve, you know, with alcohol and you know, and I'm not, at first it pissed me off, but like, I'm not here to fucking judge people. Like, for me, I felt like, my mom losing my mom, like, I wanted to feel everything, because I felt like she deserved for me to hurt, and not in a hurt like where it's like I want my son to hurt, but in a hurt like I want you to know how much I love you and how much I cared about you, that I'm gonna feel every single bit of it.
Every single bit, yes.
The anger, the depression, the loneliness, the crying in my bed at night, you know. Yeah, I wanted to feel all that, and I felt like she deserved for me to feel all that, right? I'm not just going to drown and hide like I have my whole fucking life, you know? I want to feel everything, so, yeah.
And I read something probably about a week or so ago. It talks about that in a nutshell. Like, that deep, deep, deep hurt that we feel is because we loved so deeply.
Yep.
And it made sense to me. It made sense to me. And you know, and I lost my pops in 2020. And that was a hurt too. Like, that was my first parent that passed. My mom Dee, my stepmom, she was a few years before that. And, you know, and she played a genuine part of when we were growing up and everything, like I shared earlier. And loved us like her own and everything too. And that was a whole nother level. But the deeper I worked in my program, because I came in to recovery with some stuff about my mom and dad. I had anger towards my dad, and I had anger towards my mom. And I really had to do a lot of work on that to get to the place where I am today, you know? And being able to work on that gave me the ability to be able to be a part of my siblings when we cared for my dad. Like, they trusted me with caring for my dad, and they knew I was going to show up, and they knew I was going to do the best I could, you know? And I got to experience that, and I'm so grateful for that, because I did the work on letting go of all the other stuff that I was able to do that. And then with my mom also doing the work way back here, and then being able to have her in our home and bring her in and be there when she took her final breath. I am so grateful. So grateful. Because my thoughts always go to, what if I had missed all of that?
Right.
What if I had continued doing what I was doing? I would have missed all of that, you know? And Adam, to hear you talk and say about your mom deserved that for you to hurt like that, for that kind of love, that's a gift that we get to have. Like to love that deeply, gosh, I remember when it wasn't even like that. It was just, what you got for me? What are we going to do? And all of that. No. You know, because I hurt my parents a lot too.
Right.
But I'm grateful that it's not like that anymore. You know, and mostly that I get to love myself.
Right.
Some days I don't like myself, maybe, and some behaviors, but I love myself. I really do.
All right, Norma, one last question before we wrap it up. If there's a young lady out there or a young man that's in the throes of addiction or in a abusive relationship or been through some of the things that you've been through, what's one piece of advice you might give them?
One piece of advice I would give them is it can change. It can change. There is hope for all of us. It doesn't matter who we are, where we come from, what economic society we're from, anything like that. There is hope for all of us. Give yourself a chance. I know it could be scary. I know it could be questionable. I don't know if I could do it. What if this? What if that? Don't live in the what ifs. Just step out of your comfort zone. Step out of what you know, and just try something different. Give yourself a chance. You deserve that no matter what. Any of us, we deserve that no matter what. You know, the chains can be broken. They really can.
Yeah.
They really can. That's what I would share with them.
All right. Thank you, Norma.
Thank
Appreciate you coming.
All right, and tune in next week when we'll have a new episode. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share Norma's story with anybody who might need to hear it.
All right. See you next week.
How does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you, and take you out forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.